Scotland's history is packed with all manner of stories and tales, all of which have played an important part in creating our unique culture. Storytelling would help with early education, keeping historical accounts, rationalising the world and our laws, counselling, advising, propaganda, and of course entertainment. Up until a few hundred years ago, the storyteller was a valuable position in the community, and would often advise the local clan chiefs on how to lead their people by looking back into their own history. It was said that a really great storyteller had a tale and a solution for almost every occasion, and in this week's tale we encounter just such a man. Of Guilt and Gold. Many years ago, in the Western Isles of Scotland, there once lived a farmer. As a young man, the farmer worked his patch of land and worked it well. Soon enough, he had more land and more livestock, and as the years went by, his success continued, eventually making the farmer incredibly comfortable in his old age, so much so that he and his 3 sons would never want for anything. But eventually, there would come a time when the farmer lay in his deathbed. Now on that day, he would call for his 3 sons, and tell them all that his time within this world would soon come to an end. But once he is gone, the sons were to search beneath his bed and find a small box filled with gold. This was the farmer's hard-earned savings, and would become their inheritance. The farmer made it known that he would have no arguing over the sum, and his sons were to divide the gold equally and honestly between the 3. The boys told their father that they would of course respect his final wishes, and some days later the poor man would pass away. The sons called for the local minister and quickly prepared a funeral. Now once their father was buried, the 3 men would meet within his house and search for the box beneath the bed. The ornate chest was easily found, but upon opening it, they found the box to be completely empty, with not even a single piece of silver or gold lying within. The 3 stood dumbstruck for a few minutes, before finally the youngest spoke up. There's no knowing if there was truly any money there at all, but the second brother replied, "Surely there must have been gold here once." "Our father was an honest man," said the elder brother. "He would not tell a lie. The gold must have been here at some point." The brothers talked among themselves for many hours, while continuing to search the room for their lost inheritance, but by the night's end there was no riches or treasure to be found. Early upon the next morning, the eldest brother met with the others and told them that the best course of action would be to seek help from their father's oldest and dearest of friends, a storyteller who had grown up in the neighbouring farm. With all the brothers agreeing that this was the right course of action, they soon found themselves seated by a roaring fire in the home of the storyteller. They would tell the old man about their father's wishes, the lost inheritance, and how they are now at a loss as of what to do. "You must stay with me," said the old man, "and I will think over this matter. As you know, your father and I were close friends, and I refuse to believe that he lied or tricked you. He told me himself of how he was to leave the gold, and how it should be equally divided between the 3 of you." Now the sons would agree to stay with the storyteller, and would spend the next few weeks sharing tales and stories of their recently deceased father. Then on one night, the storyteller called for the 3 brothers, and bade them sit and listen to what he said was his most favourite of tales. And this is what he told them. There was once a poor young lad who fell in love with a beautiful young woman, and even though she loved him too, the pair could not be married. The woman's family were wealthy and of noble blood, and completely disavowed the relationship. The young lad promised the woman that he would work hard, and eventually would save enough money to pay her family her bride price, and that one day the pair would be married, and thus a pledge between the two was created. The young man would then leave and live alone while he tirelessly worked to gain the money needed to save his bride. But this would not come quick enough for the woman's family, and soon her father had arranged for her to marry the son of a local laird, who would have no issue with the extravagant bride price. Now the poor woman was forced to marry the strange man on the very first day she met him. That evening, on their wedding night, the young nobleman entered the bride's room and found her weeping in great sorrow. "What ails you?" he said. The bride told her new husband about the lad she fell in love with and her horrible treatment by her father. "Stop your weeping and follow me," said her new husband. The laird's son leapt atop his great horse and pulled the woman up behind him. Soon they were thundering up the road and into the deep forest. The woman, still in her bridal gown, suddenly realised the direction of their journey. The pair were heading towards the young lad's house, and she feared what might happen upon their arrival. When they reached the lad's hut, the laird's son dropped from his horse, strode across the ground, and banged loudly upon the door. "If there be a man inside this hut, then come out now." But the second a candle was lit from within, the laird's son returned to his horse, and with a smile he bowed to the woman before racing away. It was now that the door opened, and the young lad stood in shock as he saw the woman he desired, dressed in a full bridal gown, standing upon his doorstep. The pair embraced in a joyous reunion, and entering the hut, the bride told him of her marriage to the laird's son, and of the man's actions once he had heard of the previous pledge. The lad fell in tears and told the woman that still he could not provide for her, and though he loved her, her true husband seemed to be a man of great kindness, a better man than the lad could ever wish to be. He would be content, for his one true love, to live an affluent life with such a generous nobleman. The lad quickly grasped a parchment and quill, and hastily wrote a note freeing the woman of their previous pledge, and begging her to return to her new husband. "If you love me as much as I love you, then please go to that man and live such a life as you deserve. This I beg of you." With that said, the lad gave the woman his own horse, and silently she rode away into the night, tears falling from her eyes. Now the young bride had not quite left the forest when she was stopped dead in her tracks by two men who leapt from the trees, wielding great swords. The horse came to a halt, and within seconds a blade was raised to the woman's throat. "It would seem that we've found a bride, left all alone in the road," laughed one of the robbers. The woman, still in tears, tried to appeal to the robbers. She told them of her heartbreaking night, and how she was to return to her husband, a good and honest man, and if they were to leave her alone, she would give the pair the 10 golden coins that were in her purse. The bride's emotional plea seemed to cause a change of heart in one of the robbers, and he decided to let her go. In fact, he would make sure that she continued through the forest in complete and utter safety. She insisted that the man take the gold, and thanked him for his kindness, but the robber would hear none of it, and told her to keep the money. But it was at this point his partner seemed to take great umbrage. "Dinna be daft, at the very least I'm taking the gold." The second robber keenly relieved the woman's purse of the coins, and calling his partner a fool, he returned to the trees as the bride and her unexpected guardian continued through the forest. Soon the strange pair were parted at the edge of the forest, and some hours later the woman arrived at the young laird's home. She ran into the castle and found her new husband, telling him of her strange night, while handing over the signed parchment from the young lad. The laird's son could not believe his luck, and gladly accepted the beautiful woman as his wife, and the young couple went on to live just such a life that the lad had wished for them. As his tale came to a close, the old storyteller looked deeply into the eyes of each of the sons, and said to them, "Now which one of the characters for the story do you think was the best?" The 3 men seemed to sit a while in thought before the eldest son gave his answer. "I think it was the laird's son. He happily reunited the woman with whom she was pledged. He was an honest and generous man. Very true, said the second son, but to me it must be the young lad. He sacrificed a life with his beloved to ensure her safety and care. You ask a very difficult question indeed, said the youngest son. I am not entirely sure the answer, but perhaps the wisest of all was the robber that took the gold, and escaped with no repercussions. The old man would slowly pull himself from his chair, and with a look of great sorrow, he said, I can tell a story, and the story itself can tell us the heart of the listener. He raised a hand and pointed a finger at the youngest son. You, for instance, believe that the robber with the gold was the wisest, and this shows your true nature. I now know it was you who deprived your brothers of their inheritance. It was you who stole your father's money, and it is you who continues to bring dishonour upon his name. The youngest brother broke down in tears and confessed to everything. He had quietly made his way into his dying father's room and surreptitiously emptied the box of gold that lay beneath his bed. The enchanting fable from the old storyteller had found the truth. The thief was forced to return the gold, which was split between his brothers, and the youngest was outcast from the family and their lands. The two older brothers would thank the storyteller greatly for his help, and for remaining a true friend to the family. They would then return to the farm and continue on their father's legacy, now knowing the power that is held within a story. Thank you for listening, and a special thank you to my wonderful patrons for helping me keep these tales alive. I think that this is a wonderful tale, and not just because I see myself as a storyteller. I love the many layers within the tale, how I am telling you the story of how a man tells a story, and the importance of that story which occurs within a story itself. But what I find to be the most fascinating thing about this tale is that no one really knows where it came from, or of course who the original storyteller was. Many similarities to other folk tales can be found scattered through this story, and some parts of it are very reminiscent of classic European fairy tales. Some have suggested a possible link between this story and the old man and his sons. A fable originally told by the ancient Greek storyteller Aesop. In his tale, an old farmer, nearing his death, calls for his three sons, who are prone to petty squabbles. He tasks them with collecting a bundle of sticks and trying to break the bundle over their knees. When it can't be done, the old farmer takes one stick at a time and breaks each and every one of them, demonstrating to his sons that they are far stronger together than apart. Now truly this is a classic fable, and its message is still very pertinent even today. But to me, I don't really see the comparison here, apart from the tale's opening. But perhaps there is some deeper connection to Aesop and storytelling that I just don't know or can't understand. From what I can find, it would seem that this tale originates in Scotland, and in particular on the Western Isles. It appears in a series of folk stories titled The Popular Tales of the West Highlands, and within that book, J.F. Campbell, the collector of the tales, tells of how he heard the story from a Donald MacIntyre from the Isle of Benbecula. MacIntyre claims that he originally heard this tale from an old storyteller in the village when he was just a boy, and that is as far back as I can trace its origins. Even Campbell, a Scottish folklorist of some renown, mentions that he has never heard of such a tale before or since. So could it be that this is an original creation from Donald MacIntyre, or perhaps the storyteller who told him? Or could it be a fragment of what is left of many now old and forgotten tales? All this seems to make it even more mystical to me. A story about the power of stories appears in Scotland and Scottish history as if from nowhere. It's a beautiful thought if nothing else. Thanks again for watching, and let me know in the comments if you know anything about this tale or similar tales from around the world. And until next time, Slán Живá.